This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome to the June 13th South Whitehall Township Planning Commission meeting. Everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of the Republic, nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Mr. Adams, can you do the roll call?
Yes. Trevor Dombach.
Here.
Tim Dugan.
Here.
Todd Farringer.
Here.
Brian Height.
Here.
Diane Kelly.
Here.
Mark Luth.
Here.
David Wilson.
Here.
7 members present, sufficient for a quorum.
I'd also like to note Township staff and consultants here tonight. We have Gregg Adams, Township Planner, Chris Stroller, Long Range Planner, Dave Manhart, Director of Community Development, Laura Harrier, Zoning Officer, Aaron Bett, Township Engineer from the Pidcock Company, Jennifer Aldifer, Township Solicitor from Zader Law. Mr. Adams, would you like to do the meeting rules?
Yes, for an orderly meeting wherein all attendees may be able to fully participate, we ask that you adhere to the following rules. In order that both in-person and remote attendees may hear all comments and/or questions, all in-person attendees will be required to use microphones at all times. We request that remote attendees please mute your microphone or telephone to avoid background noise that may cause interference in the meeting and make it difficult for others to hear. Staff may mute the microphones of remote attendees if needed. Public questions and comments will be taken at periodic intervals throughout the agenda. We will start with no time limits, but the Planning Commission Chairman may impose a time limitation if there are many questions or if the meeting is running short on time. For in-person attendees, please raise your hand to be recognized and then move to the podium when directed. Turn the podium microphone on and state your name, address, and comment or question. Please turn the podium microphone off when done. For remote attendees, the chat box feature will be active throughout the meeting. If you have a comment or question, please type your full name and address in the chat box. When you are recognized and so directed, please unmute your microphone and state your comment or question. Mute your microphone when done. For those who are accessing the meeting by phone only, staff will periodically ask for caller comments and unmute all callers. Callers must identify their name and address prior to making a comment. Your cooperation and adherence to these rules will ensure an orderly and respectful meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. We're on agenda item number 3, review and approval of minutes. Does anyone have any comments for the May 16th Planning Commission meeting minutes? Looks like no. Does anyone want
I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
One abstention. I was not present at that meeting.
All right, one abstention, none opposed, motion passes. All right, we're on agenda item number 4, subdivision review. Parkland School District, new operations center, phase 3. Greg, would you like to do the township staff review?
Yes, this is an application to further develop the property located at 2619 Stadium Drive. The plan proposes a 12,832 square foot addition to the second floor of the new Operations Center building on the 8.7 acre parcel. The property is served by public water and is zoned rural residential RR2. Parkland School District is the owner and applicant. This plan was before the board back in their May 9th meeting. The Planning Commission had reviewed and voted to support 9 of the waiver deferral requests. They tabled the recommendations on 2 of them until the traffic issue has been resolved. Then they took the plan under advisement to resolve those issues. The Community Development Department recommends that the Planning Commission recommend preliminary final plan approval to the Board of Commissioners, subject to the applicant complying with the following conditions. 1, Prior to plan recording, the applicant shall execute subdivision improvement, security, maintenance, and indemnification agreements acceptable to the township and its solicitor, that sufficient security in a form acceptable to the township be posted, and such security should be available for draws presentations either by an in-person presentation location no further than 60 miles from the township's office, or by email presentation or facsimile presentation, and evidence of necessary insurance coverage in a form acceptable to township be provided. 2, prior to plan recording, the applicant shall address to the satisfaction township engineer the comments of Mr. Anthony Tallarita as contained in his review dated June 5th, 2024. 3, the applicant shall address to the satisfaction township water and sewer engineer the comments of Mr. Jason Newhart as contained in his review dated April 26th, 2024. 4, the applicant shall address to the satisfaction public works department the comments of Mr. Herb Bender as contained in his review dated April 25th, 2024. 5, the applicant shall address to the satisfaction community development department the comments of Mr. Gregg Adams as contained in his review dated June 6, 2024. 6, that the school district and township agree to monitor the operation of the intersection of Lime Kiln Road and State Road 309 after the facility is constructed and operational. At any time that the township identifies unacceptable delays or queuing on the westbound Lime Kiln Road approach as predicted in the May 17th, 2023 Transportation Impact Assessment, it shall be the obligation of the school district to study the intersection and provide an analysis to the township and to PennDOT. The school district's obligation to study the intersection shall be limited to a period of 5 years after the facility is constructed and operational. The school district agrees to construct any timing upgrades deemed necessary by the township and PennDOT, all at the sole expense of the school district and within a reasonable time frame as approved by the township. 7, that the school district and township agree to monitor the operation of the intersection of Lime Kiln Road and Stadium Road after the facility is constructed and operational. At any time the township identifies unacceptable delays or queuing in the eastbound lane of Lime Kiln Road approach as predicted in the May 17, 2023 Transportation Impact Assessment, it shall be the obligation of the school district to study the intersection and provide analysis to the township and PennDOT. The school district's obligation to study the intersection shall be limited to a period of 5 years after the facility is constructed and operational. The school district agrees to construct any timing upgrades or other upgrades deemed necessary by the township and PennDOT, all at the sole expense of the school district and within a reasonable time frame as approved by the township. 8, that the applicant shall address all issues and obtain all approvals necessary by South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners insofar as matters pertaining to the township's water and sewer service are concerned. In this case, it would be water only. The applicant shall provide to the Community Development Department written confirmation from the appropriate reviewing agency that all applicable comments have been addressed, including but not limited to whether water allocation and tapping fees are required, and if required, what the amount of the fee will be. Payment of allocation fees shall be tendered prior to the plan being recorded. Payment for tapping fees shall be tendered prior to building permit issuance. 9, that the applicant shall obtain a letter from PADEP approving the sewage facilities planning module prior to plan recording. The applicant shall provide the Community Development Department written confirmation of the appropriate reviewing agency that all applicable comments have been addressed. 10, the applicant coordinates with Township Engineer's Office to have the address assigned to the existing barn on the plan of record. 11, that the applicant shall reconcile all open invoices for township engineering and legal services prior to the plan being recorded, and that the applicant shall remit payment for any and all required fees to the satisfaction of the township manager, the community development department, the finance department, and the public works department prior to the plan being recorded. The Planning Commission and Board of Commissioners deadline to act on the plan is November 14th, 2024.
Thank you, Greg. Before we get into the township engineer review, is there anyone in the audience other than the applicant and their representatives here interested in this particular application? That's a no. Is there anyone online? No. All right. Ms. Bett.
Sure.
As mentioned in our June 5th memo to the township, a transportation impact assessment review was performed by our office. We concur with the results presented by the applicant regarding the intersection of Lime Kiln and Stadium Roads and have suggested a condition of approval similar to the Route 309 and Lime Kiln Road intersection, as Greg had previously mentioned. We would recommend deferrals be requested for the required Lime Kiln Road frontage improvements. We note that we would defer to township staff regarding the extent of the improvements required. At this time, conditioned upon addressing the remaining comments contained in our May 2nd memo, we can recommend engineering approval.
All right, thank you. All yours.
Thank you. We did talk about this project at the last meeting, so I unless you want me to, I was not going to rehash what we talked about. It's basically adding some additional square footage on the second floor of the building that was approved last year. So really, us as the applicant have no issues with the conditions that were presented. And I think we just wanted to discuss the remaining deferral request, which was the frontage on Lime Kiln Road. And I believe the previous project was granted a deferral for the sidewalks, and we'd be requesting the same thing for this project.
All right, thank you.
I have a question. Condition 7 in the staff's recommendation involves the intersection of Lime Kiln Road and Stadium Road, eastbound. And it says, in part, agrees to construct any timing upgrades deemed necessary. How do you do a timing upgrade at a stop-controlled intersection?
You don't, that will have to be amended.
Yeah, I think we'll have to take that word timing out of that one. Yeah.
I have a question on that same condition, both number 6 and 7. Both of those conditions reference the traffic study that was predicted on May 17th, 2023, the transportation impact assessment. There's been a revision to that on May 17th of 2024. Would it make sense to put the revised date to have the most current?
Oh, so there's a typo. Yes, that should actually be 2024, not 2023.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the only question I had.
Okay. Anyone else on the planning commission?
Have we voted on any of the waivers listed A through G on page 25? Previously?
Yes.
We did.
Yes.
At the last meeting, yes.
The last meeting, right. Okay.
Yeah, the only one that remained is item C there, the 31226A and 31235B. All the others were recommended last month.
So at this point, you're looking for recommending a deferral similar to the previous plan on the extent of improvements required along Lime Kiln Road.
Correct.
I believe it would make sense since they're not doing any public improvements there now, since the recommendation was to monitor it, that those improvements be a deferral, and then once any of those improvements came in, they would do frontage. Right, any comments, questions? It looks like we need to make a motion on the waiver request 1C on page 25.
But we're not tying that deferral to the 5-year upgrade if necessary.
That's correct. That would be it would be a separate
Deferral has nothing to do theoretically if they have to put in any improvements to Lime Kiln, or at that point it might be appropriate to call them, but we're not tying it
Correct. I believe that's the intent at this point.
Okay.
If staff reviews that and decides it's time to call them in, then we have that option.
Okay. Then I would make a recommendation for the deferral of Saldo 312-26A and 312-35B to the extent of the improvements required along Lime Kiln Road.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, so moved. All right, I think, do we have any other questions? Need to make another motion on the plans.
I'll make a motion to approve with the correction to conditions 6 and 7, changing the date to May 17th of 2024 for the transportation impact assessment.
I will second that if Ms. Kelly agrees to the removal of the timing section in number 7.
I concur.
Second.
All right, does anyone have any questions on the motion? That's a no. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, so moved.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, we're on agenda item number 4B, Ridge Farm Final Plan Phase 1C. For the record, I would like to note the company I work for does work for the applicant, so I will be recusing myself from voting. All right, Mr. Adams, would you like to do the township staff presentation?
Yes, this is an application to develop the property located at PIN 5487-4642-2139, which is located directly west of the Buckman Street, Roosevelt Street intersection and directly north and northwest of the Kenneth Israel Cemetery. The plan proposes 34 two-unit dwelling units, which is 17 pairs of twins. The construction of Granary Lane, Grist Mill Lane, and the continuation of Buckman Street. Active open space number 5, and basins 8 and 9, and the associated stormwater management facilities on an approximately 6.8 acre portion of the 123 acre tract. The property is zoned R4 medium density residential and TND residential cluster overlay district, and has been being developed as a TND residential cluster overlay. K. Walbert LLC is the equitable owner and applicant. A little history. This was reviewed by the Planning Commission at their December 15th, 2022 meeting. The plan has been resubmitted many times. A number of times it was withdrawn from a Planning Commission agenda, as you probably recall. The community development's recommendation. At this point, we are recommending final plan approval be recommended by the Planning Commission, conditioned upon the following conditions. 1, that prior to plan recording, the applicant shall execute subdivision improvement, security, maintenance, and indemnification agreements acceptable to township and solicitor. That sufficient security in a form acceptable to township be posted, and such security shall be available for draws presentations, either an in-person presentation location no further than 60 miles from township's office, or by email presentation or facsimile presentation, and that evidence of necessary insurance coverage in a form acceptable to township be provided. 2, that the applicant address the satisfaction township engineer the comments of Mr. Anthony Talarita as contained in his review of June 5th, 2024. 3, that the applicant address the satisfaction of township water and sewer engineer the comments of Mr. Jason Newhart as contained in his review dated April 26, 2024. 4, that the applicant addresses the satisfaction of Township geotechnical consultant. The comments of Mr. Chris Taylor is contained in his review dated May 24th, 2024. 5, that the applicant addresses the satisfaction of Township TND consultant. The comments of Mr. Thomas Comita is contained in his review dated June 4th, 2024. 5, that the applicant addresses the satisfaction of Township Community Development Department, and the comments of Mr. Gregg Adams is contained in his review dated June 6th, 2024. 7, that the applicant addresses the satisfaction of Public Works Department. The comments of Mr. Herb Bender is contained in his review dated June 6, 2024. 8, that the applicant addresses the satisfaction of the Fire Marshal. The comments of Mr. John Francis contained in his review dated May 21, 2024. 9, that the applicant addresses all issues and obtains all approvals deemed necessary by the South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners insofar as matters pertaining to the township's water and sewer service are concerned. The applicant shall provide the Community Development Department written confirmation from the appropriate reviewing agencies that all applicable comments have been addressed, including but not limited to whether water and sewer allocation and tapping fees are required, and if required, the amount of each fee will be. Payment of the allocation fees shall be tendered prior to the plan recording. Payment for tapping fees shall be tendered prior to building permit issuance. 10, that the applicant obtains a letter from PADEP approving the sewage facilities planning module. 11, that the applicant will be responsible for making necessary arrangements with the municipality and the public service company involved for streetlights as approved by the Board of Commissioners, and shall be further responsible for providing utility easements for lighting standards and fixtures in accordance with Section 312-41A-1A of SALDO. A note, item 12 has been accomplished, so it can be removed. 13, that the sidewalk along Cottage Lane be placed within the sidewalk easement that ensures public access, places the maintenance responsibilities on the property owner or homeowners association, and guarantees the township the right but not the obligation to maintain the path at the expense of the property owner or homeowners association. 14, that the street trees along Cottage Lane be located on private property be placed within a street tree easement that places the maintenance responsibilities on the property owner or the HOA, and guarantees the township the right but not the obligation to maintain the trees at the expense of the property owner or HOA. The street trees within the easement shall remain perpetually subject to the township ordinance or ordinances relating to the maintenance and replacement of street trees, and the township shall have the right but not the obligation to enforce the requirements of these ordinances should the property owner or homeowners association fail to maintain or replace street trees as required thereunder. 15, that the sidewalk along Granary Lane be placed within a sidewalk easement that ensures public access, places the maintenance responsibilities on the property owner or HOA, and guarantees the township the right but not the obligation to maintain the path at the expense of the property owner or homeowners association. 16, that the street trees along Granary Lane be located on private property be placed within a street tree easement that places the maintenance responsibilities on the property owner or the homeowners association, and guarantees the township the right but not the obligation to maintain the trees at the expense of the property owner or HOA. 17, that the sidewalk along Gristmill Lane be placed within a sidewalk easement that ensures public access, places the maintenance responsibilities on the property owner or HOA, and guarantees the township the right but not the obligation to maintain the path at the expense of the property owner or HOA. 18, that the street trees along Gristmill Lane located on private property be placed within a street tree easement that places the maintenance responsibilities on the property owner or HOA, and guarantees the township the right but not the obligation to maintain the trees at the expense of the property owner or HOA. 19, that the applicant shall agree upon satisfactory completion of all storm sewer, water, and sanitary sewer facilities shown in the plan as intended for dedication to the township, to execute formal bills of sale for said facilities so as to convey said facilities to the township for a nominal consideration. 20, that the declaration of covenants and easements for the maintenance of stormwater management facilities prepared by the township solicitor be executed for the maintenance of the on-site stormwater management facilities. 21, that the applicant shall secure all public improvements and execute all required agreements related to this final plan phase 1C prior to the recording of this final plan phase 1C. The applicant shall restrict by deed restriction or similar instrument approved by the township solicitor's office the property under the remaining unconstructed phases to remain open space in perpetuity to be maintained by the HOA until such time that the final plan for the particular phase is recorded. No final plan shall be permitted to be recorded if said final plan will cause that portion of the Ridge Farm tract proposed to be under development under the TND residential cluster as a whole to no longer comply with the TND residential cluster overlay district regulations. 22, that this final plan, Phase 1C, shall meet the active open space requirements of Section 351.31 F2C IA by means acceptable to the township prior to the recording of the plan. The applicant shall secure all unconstructed active open space improvements in an amount and in a form acceptable to the township. 23, that the applicant reconciles all open invoices for township engineering and legal services prior to the plan being recorded. 24, that any changes to the final plan that the township staff deems sufficiently significant will require additional review by the Planning Commission prior to the presentation of a revised plan to the Board of Commissioners for an updated final approval. By signing the acceptance of the conditions form attached to this resolution, the applicant shall specifically acknowledge and agrees that if staff deems changes to the final plan should be sufficiently significant to require additional review by the Planning Commission and approved by the Board of Commissioners, no further construction activity or improvements shall be made until the Board of Commissioners approves of the changes. 25, the plans are to be revised and deemed to be clean prior to them being presented to the Board of Commissioners. 26, the applicant shall meet all conditions of the final plan approval and the record plan will be recorded within 12 months of conditional final plan approval, and that the applicant agrees that if such conditions are not met, the conditional final plan approval will be considered void and the application of final plan approval will be considered void and withdrawn unless otherwise approved by Township Board of Commissioners. 27, if for any reason, any condition or conditions of this resolution or any portions thereof shall be held by a forum of competent jurisdiction to be invalid, illegal, void, or unenforceable in any respect or in any extent, one, this resolution, oh boy, shall be automatically deemed to be null and void. Wait, do I have to go through all this? And automatically repealed as if it never passed. 2, this resolution shall be automatically be deemed to be a resolution denying the application due to the fact that this application does not comply with those sections of SALDO or other applicable ordinances listed herein or in any review letters referred to herein, including any section relating to waivers or deferrals. And 3, that the applicant is waiving any right to proceed with an action seeking a deemed approval of the plan based on the automatic repeal of this resolution identified in this condition. The applicant acknowledges that each and every term of this provision is an essential material component of the township's approval of the applicant's plan. And finally, 28, in the event that the township becomes involved in litigation of any kind relating to a major subdivision rather than the direct appeal of the applicant to the township's approval of this resolution, such an appeal of this resolution, by an adjoining property owner or third party or an attempt to collaterally change any conditions of this approval by means other than the timely appeal of this resolution, the applicant on behalf of itself or its agents, representatives, successors, or assigns hereby agrees to exonerate, indemnify, protect, defend through legal counsel of the township's choice and save harmless from the township and its boards, committees, and commissions, including the individual members thereof, their elected and appointed officials and their employees, contractors, other professional consultants, engineers, solicitors, managers, representatives, advisors, predecessors, successors, agents, independent contractors, insurers, assigns collectively the township representatives, from any and all claims, lawsuits, proceedings, actions, disputes, causes, rights of action, expenses, losses, allegations, demands, charges, injuries, costs, including without limitations, attorney's fees, engineer's fees, and other costs and expenses incurred, including expert witnesses' fees, damages, including without limitation, compensatory, consequential, or punitive damages, sanctions and liabilities of every kind, character, or manner whatsoever in law or in equity, civil or criminal, administrative or judicial, contact, tort, including without limitation, negligence of any kind, or otherwise claims pertaining to, related to, resulting from, caused by, and or arising out of the township's approval of this application as evidenced by this resolution and/or the township taking any action contemplated by the conditions thereof. The Planning Commission deadline to act on this plan is August 29th, 2024. The Board of Commissioners deadline is coincidentally August 29th, 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Those are very thorough conditions. Once again, before I move into the township engineer review, is there anyone in the audience interested in this application? That's a no. Is there anyone online? No one's online. All right.
Sure. As Mr. Adams has mentioned in the upper conditions, our June 5th memo contains comments from our final plan review. Comments to note in our memo include coordination with Public Works regarding the improvements to Buckman Street and minor revisions to clean up final plan items. Based upon our engineering review and conditioned on addressing items contained in our June 5th memo, we can recommend engineering approval. We note that there is an outstanding item for zoning in the township staff letter to be addressed, and the applicant or Laura may wish to further discuss this matter.
All right, thank you. Would the applicant like to do your presentation?
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Adams, for reading all those conditions. Good evening. So I'm here tonight for Ridge Farms Phase 1C, the 34 twins that are on all the way at the east end of the project. The plan was just brought up on the screen. So this plan is substantially similar to the one you saw back at the end of 2022, but it has been through 5 revisions. Those revisions mostly had to do with coordination with DPW, primarily concerning a water line, extending a 12-inch line to the project site. There were also some coordination items relative to stormwater management. We had a number of meetings with the Conservation District that modified the stormwater thought process a little bit. Ultimately, what the end result of that is we're installing not just Basin 8, which is the basin all the way to the east side, but also Basin 9. So I think through that process, and the township was on a number of those pre-application meetings with the Conservation District, we're in a good place at this point. There are probably 2 items for discussion. One that I wanted to bring up. One of them is a waiver. There is the existing roads in this neighborhood were paved. I'm sorry, Greg.
Sorry, can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
Basically, it has been determined that the waiver request is the purview of the Board of Commissioners. It is not a saldo section. It's a completely separate section in the codifieds. So we are not seeking a Planning Commission recommendation on that waiver.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So with that, would you like me to mention the zoning item, or is that something that?
Yes, I think that is an open item.
Okay. So there was one zoning item, as was mentioned in the recent review. It concerns the access into the site through the extension of Buckman. So that extension, as part of the original Ridge Farm approval and Phase 1A recording, there was a condition there, and it's being blown up on the screen, that right of way be dedicated to the township. So that right of way, as of some time ago, was dedicated to the township. There are 2 indented parking spaces proposed along that extension of Buckman. That was a request of the homeowner to the north when we had coordinated with them, but it was subject to the township of approving those parking spaces. And when there was a thought process that this extension may end up being private, and if it was private, it was possible that those indented parking spaces could remain. Again, the township's request was to dedicate that right away. So there was a concern based on an ordinance section that those parking spaces aren't permitted by ordinance. So we understand that we'll need to remove those spaces subject to any recommendation you may make, but we're willing to remove those parking spaces, just extend the curb along that property. So again, it was a request by that homeowner to the north when we coordinated with them on the right of way, but it was that agreement was conditioned on the township approving those.
If I can just add, yes, we did agree to that. So as long as they are removed, it would satisfy the zoning comment, but it should be shown on a plan.
All right. Does anyone on the planning commission have any questions, comments?
Have you talked about that with the property owner to the north? I'm assuming the spots were meant for that
The
owner's
agreement,
use.
the agreement with the property owner to the north specifically notes that if subject to the township approval, so it's acknowledged in there that that's the case.
Thank you.
Yeah, so currently it's a gravel driveway. I was looking at, is it sheet CS 101, which is on page 62, which I think shows the existing road sort of in the background and the proposed road. If we zoom in. So we see the two indented streets. So what, in order to be compliant with zoning, those two parking spaces would be removed. But you could sort of see in light gray the extent of the existing gravel driveway, which looks to be more narrow than the 28-foot wide paved road that's being proposed. So it does look like it's being widened when compared against the existing condition, and this is being built to township standards, right? And this is the township request to remove those parking spaces because it's not zoning compliant.
It's not necessarily a request of the township. If
Okay.
they wish to pursue those spaces, it would require a variance,
Okay.
therefore a trip to the zoning hearing.
Okay.
Are sidewalks going to be required to be built there along Buckman?
I believe it does not appear that sidewalks are
They're not shown.
shown there, no. And that is likely, well, I don't think we discussed that. But I do know that the existing neighborhood does not have sidewalks anywhere.
But there's sidewalks proposed internally to this project. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My thought is, how are the kids going to get to the bus stop? And chances are the bus stop's going to be at Roosevelt and Buckman. I doubt a bus is going to, Parkland School District, they were just here and they left, but I doubt they were going to want to circle it. So
When I spoke to Parkland about it, they were actually said the bus stop will be at Buckman and Philmont.
Well, there's also the issue of residents in this development who may be wanting to access Atlanta bus and to get out to Walbert Avenue.
And as we discussed this, the existing roads in the neighborhood are about 22 feet wide. So this proposed extension will be 28 feet wide. So it's wider than what exists today throughout the development. Also, the road, that's the circular road through the development is 28 feet wide. And we do have parking on one side of the street there because that is permitted by ordinance. So that's another option, is that we could stripe parking the north side here if that's something that was, or at least a couple spots if that was something that was preferred. So it's not any different than what we're showing on Gristmill Lane.
is it proposed to be like marked no parking, or?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking anybody in the room that might know the answer,
On the
to be honest. So,
on that section of Buckman,
what's that?
Yeah.
it would, I don't know that it was contemplated.
Well, if it's not parked, somebody's got to park there.
It's a public road.
Right. And
So-
it kind of makes the pull off parking kind of moot if they can park on the cartway. So that's why I'm asking. Those were the two things when I initially looked at this last night, was no sidewalk shown there. And then I saw the comment about the pull off spaces. So
I mean, in fairness to the developer, he's here for final plan. He didn't calculate any of that into stormwater. It's not calculated for his net. These,
correct.
we had a shot at it at preliminary. It probably should have been brought up then.
Well,
That's my thought.
At that time, it was anticipated that it was going to be private. So the change is that this is now going to be public.
Mhm.
So I don't know that we necessarily contemplated sidewalks. And we can certainly look into that and come up with a recommendation.
And since this is going to be public, that would probably require township action to sign it for no parking,
Right.
which is certainly something you can recommend.
Do we want it to be no parking?
I think that's a big problem in our township on some of these roads. Too many cars, people parking the grass. I think in an older neighborhood, we're transitioning to a newer, wider street here, but on those 22-foot wide streets, I mean, people just park in the grass and ruin it, and then we end up with sediment on the roads. I would be.
Yeah, this is curbed on both sides.
Still, it takes space away in the street. And if there's no sidewalks and people are trying to walk to a bus stop or somewhere, walk down Buckman or try to cut through the connector on Roosevelt through the bollards.
Obviously, that homeowner to the north had a desire for parking. So if we eliminate parking altogether, then
Yeah,
they really don't get what they wanted.
Yeah, that was kind of my comment at the beginning. And
Yeah.
I'm assuming this was for the homeowner. So what?
Jason, what was if I recall correctly, it was a request of the Public Works Department to have that be public for plowing, and then there was a snow easement at the terminus, kind of is that what it was?
Public Works did ask for a snow easement for maintenance, and we would have probably provided whether it was public or private. The request for dedication of this section really came about considering the overall plan, so it goes back a couple of years now. So I'm not sure about what the motivation was, but it does. I don't know if that's as relevant considering it's already a dedicated right of way. So it's a township right of way based on
I would think, that homeowner probably wants parking along that street. So if we're making the road wider and we allow parking, then that homeowner would assume would prefer that. I would hate to take away those 2 parking spaces and then say you can't park there.
He does have a driveway. I mean, in lieu of not having sidewalks, I would be in agreement to say sign it for no parking. I mean, at the end of the day, man has a driveway like anybody else does. He can pull into his driveway. If they want to park, they can park on Roosevelt in front of their house. And I don't think we're restricting them in any sense.
I believe that this is a similar right-of-way to Gristmill Lane and the others within there. So that's designed for parking on one side, no parking on the other side. Perhaps that might be the answer, is the north side would have parking, the south side be fine, no parking. We could probably, between staff, the township engineer, and the developer, we can probably look at putting sidewalk in as appropriate as best we can, given the limited right-of-way that's left over. It is a 40-foot right-of-way, 28-foot cartway, so that leaves 12 feet on either side. So we could potentially get a 4 or 5 foot sidewalk on either side, or maybe we could shift the geometry a little to.
Yeah, I think if the Plan Commission was interested in sidewalk and was insistent upon that, I think you'd only want to do it on one side and then slide the 28-foot right away down slightly to allow a little more room to do that. Or alternatively, park on the street on the north side and maybe even make the roadway instead of 28 feet, maybe make it 30 feet to provide a little additional room to I think we're open as it relates to the 40-foot right of way on for your recommendation. We have a limit of what we can do within that 40 feet.
Is something engineering and staff can work through?
I think so. I mean, there's only so many options.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know what putting sidewalk would get us. This is my personal opinion on Buckman, even on the south side, versus just marking it no parking on the one side.
Since you're not tying into any other sidewalk
I mean,
network.
it just turns into a sidewalk to nowhere. Unless I'm in.
Well, yeah, and I agree. I mean, I just say if you've got your NEPDs and you got your Act 167 and you have those things in place and everything is sized for what it is right now, sort of penalizing you at the last second here. I'm open to the different scenarios in terms of parking and no parking on one side and maybe even widening the roadway, but you are adding impervious when you do that. So if you don't have room in your numbers.
Was the bump out calculated in the impervious for stormwater?
I think so. I appreciate that. I think that we do have a little bit of room because we'll be losing those 2 spaces on the bump out. So, but again, your ordinance does permit 28-foot wide road with parking on the street, so we can certainly do that here. If that's shift the center line.
Is there any engineering comments regarding this that you could add?
Sure. I agree with Jason as far as, shifting things around, and we can see if it works, outside of this. We can definitely take a look at it regarding if sidewalk is necessary, or, how we feel about the no parking signs as well.
Thank you.
That could be a condition if. Okay. Yeah, question. So your water and sewer is out at the front side of the properties, correct?
When you say the front side, you mean from the
street facing side?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So, but in your drainage and stormwater plan, there's a swale that runs at the rear of the properties. There's a 20-foot easement in there, correct?
Correct, yes.
What steps have you as the developer taken to ensure that there aren't obstructions to that drainage easement from future homeowners and tenants? Because the township has been having a problem with impacts within design, stormwater swales, and even underground utilities.
Well, there'll be a stormwater operation and maintenance agreement with the township. There'll be a set of maintenance requirements, and it'll be part of an HOA. So the HOA will have responsibilities to maintain that swale. So it won't be on an individual homeowner. It'll be the HOA maintaining it.
Yeah. But then it'll still be there'll be that additional burden on the township to ensure that the HOA is enforcing that as soon as fences and any other obstructions go up in that area.
Well, again, it'll be the HOA's responsibility, but I think that, the township would have some enforcement as they would with any project that has an HOA. Right. But there wouldn't be room to provide fences and things in this development. So, and I'm sure you're generally the HOA.
People have grass, they're going to build fences.
So
I imagine it'll be restricted from as part of the HOA docs to propose that here.
Okay. Thank you.
Are you envisioning an HOA for the whole project, the whole Ridge Farms, or is this one going to be like a little separate because it's kind of separate?
There is an HOA that exists already that it's intended for the whole project.
Okay.
I'd have to
No,
talk to the
I was
attorneys
just
to get further than that.
wondering, because HOAs can get a little political within their own, political is probably they can become a little,
Yes.
when you have such a massive one, a big project like this, and then they're off, they might be saying they're getting forgotten about, but it was more for my own information.
Yes.
I had just a couple questions. So Buckman Street will be Township Road. The other roads, Gristmill and Granary, are private roads.
Yes,
that
everything
correct?
else is private.
Very good, thank you. And I have a question, might be for staff. Condition number 19 states that the applicant shall agree completion of all storm sewer, water, sewer, sanitary sewer facilities as intended for dedication to the township, to convey facilities to the township. But when I go to page 86, which is the Public Works memo, it states that all storm is to remain private. Those seem a little bit in conflict to me, and maybe I'm just not reading the condition clearly.
That condition is something I normally put in as a catch-all in case I missed something on the plan. I do know the developer will be doing a lot of work on the utilities off-site, which I imagine would be dedicated to the township.
Yes, you have a combination here. So anything within those roads that are private will remain private. The extension and the improvements in the existing township right-of-way, those will become public when they're completed and accepted by the township.
So Jennifer, legally, should we clean up that comment so that it accurately reflects? Because these two, the condition and the recommendation from Public Works, are not the same.
Sure, I have no objection with adding the language that Jason just said to that condition number 19.
Thank you.
I have a question. On page 82, there's a comment about the lighting plan. The lighting does not conform with the latest township ordinance. Has that been addressed at all? I didn't see anything else in any of the documents. I just wanted to ask.
No, if you go to page 52, you'll see a lot of italicized bold. And basically what that explains is it's been township policy for a long time to light intersections in residential neighborhoods, but go less lighting on the interior of the neighborhood. Kind of cut down on illumination, over illuminating. The township zoning ordinance actually says something. It starts with the intent of the following requirements is to limit the effect of sky glow, limit the intensity of illumination on adjoining properties, and to limit the direct view of the lamp source from adjoining properties. So it seems like there seems to be a conflict between the initial intent of the ordinance and certain sections within the Illuminating Engineer Society handbook. So in the past, we have gone more with the intent rather than the literal interpretation of the handbook. For other phases, the Planning Commission has voted that that's the policy we continue to maintain. And each time we kind of ask that if you vote to maintain that, could you make that global, at least across this project, if not all others, until such time as the ordinance is updated?
Okay, thank you. I just wanted some clarification for myself.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up to that comment. That letter caught my attention as well. So the letter states that there's no readable light at various points along Granary Lane, Cottage Lane, Gristmill Lane, and Cottage Street. So given this dense development, the lighting consultant didn't specify specifically where there was a deficiency compared to our ordinance. And I'm just curious, given this development where it is next to an older neighborhood, is that a consideration that the township has investigated whether or not those lights are in fact recommended there, as opposed to wholesale deferral to this. Does that make sense? We've had
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're asking.
other developments in the township that have been developed recently where later the residents are coming back asking for more light.
Yes.
So we're
And I think
developing
that's,
34 units here, and the lighting consultant is pointing out that there is no readable light at various points. I'm asking the question if it makes sense to provide adequate light.
that was the intent, was that we only want to light the intersections and we let the neighborhood decide if they want more lighting. This does not take into effect any lighting being provided by the residents themselves. It simply addresses street lighting. So if somebody has, windows and light spillage from the windows, if they have lights in the front yard, that will provide additional lighting. If in that case, once the neighborhood is fully built out and the neighbors feel that, no, we need additional lighting here, that has been the response, is that come in, ask for us to do that. And as far as I know, in every instance, the Board of Commissioners has granted the additional street light. So we prefer at this point to let the neighborhood decide what is sufficient light for their needs, because it's a lot easier to add light than it is to take away light. And as I said, this is something that we've done in the past. 1A and 1B were both had exactly the same situation, and the board here recommended that we continue that process.
Can we just go to page 67, which has the lighting plan, just so everyone can see where the lights currently are proposed?
So there's
Zoom in a
five,
little bit.
I'm sorry, Dave. There's 5 proposed lighting fixtures. They're 16 feet tall, kind of pedestrian style lighting fixtures. And as Greg mentioned, they're either at an intersection or at the curve, the bend in the road. So, and I think I agree with Greg in that you've got twin units that, very likely are going to have lights on the front of their residence, which is gonna have some light spread onto the sidewalk in front of that residence. And it's typically, in my experience, you're much more concerned to overlight a project than to underlight it. And it would be inconsistent with the rest of the neighborhood as well. Provide 10 more lights in this neighborhood.
Thank you.
Almost one of those situations, you're darned if you do, darned if you don't, because those residents will say they don't have enough light, and then sometimes there's light poles and then they say it's too bright and they want to get rid of the light, and you can't get rid of it once.
So the other piece of this is it's a private road and it'll be the HOA's responsibility. So any residents there will be going to the HOA for additional lighting, not necessarily the township. We'd have to make sure it meets our regs or doesn't exceed our regs. But any complaints like that would be the HOA's responsibility with township approval. And then just kind of a side note with regards to updating the ordinance, one of the things that we're looking at is character of roadways, and then that character of roadways would then dictate lighting standards. So we're looking at how we can kind of take into account small neighborhood compared to a large parking lot. So we're not applying the lighting standards across the board. We have some more guidance on that. So we are working on that ordinance update.
Anyone have any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I do. Kind of a random comment. That snow drop off area, it looks like it's right on the property line. Are we concerned about snow melt onto the adjoining property to the east?
So is it at the intersection of Buckman and I forget the name, Gris?
It's that little connector.
The connector road.
Yeah.
So that's for the township to dump the snow from Buckman in.
Okay.
And I'm assuming the easement is typically sized a certain size to account for any, I don't know if necessarily melt, but actually the piles of snow.
I'm sorry, where's the snow push off?
It's in the top right corner of the
Oh,
elevation.
okay.
Yeah.
Just looked like it was like, right
So
on the,
if it's on a property line, it's still an easement.
yeah. Sure.
No, I think it's on the other.
I do know we coordinated with DPW and looked at the grading from that area as well.
The last question I have actually is about that walking path of the west part of the property. So I assume it's meant to connect to the future of Phase 2C.
Yes,
What-
it will connect up the hill in the back and wind up.
Yeah, what's like the general ETA on that? And sorry if that was discussed before my time on the
The
plan.
general ETA on the rest of Ridge Farm?
No, like just Phase 2C, like just connecting that trail. Like again, I just think about like trails to nowhere. Is that a safety concern? Will there be lighting back there? Temporary or final condition?
It's hard for me to answer
Fair
the timeline for the top of the hill. I think there's still focus on completing Phase 1A, Phase 1B and C will both be moving somewhat concurrently. And then there's all the roadway improvements that have to continue. So it may be at some time before the top of the hill is.
Will that trail be open to the public, I guess, once this is built out, even though it's not connected to anything?
When it's completed, it certainly won't be, there won't be any prohibition from, but I think only the neighborhood would use it.
Okay.
For that connections through.
Yeah, just so yeah, the new people here, we definitely put a lot of thought into the open space. And I believe everything in the whole development open space will be open to the public with the exception of the 2 clubhouses and the amenities immediately connected to those clubhouses.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, no, I like it. I like the connectivity, but I was just curious. Trail to nowhere for 10 years or something.
Yeah, hopefully it will not be 10 years,
Yeah.
but it could be.
That was just the
it
point
could
of
be
my
2
question.
or 3. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions? Comments? Is there anyone online? Just want to double check. No.
Well, we have a few people online, but there's nothing coming in yet. Chris is typing.
Let's just verify.
I have one, David, just more of a comment, based on, these 34 units going in directly adjacent to an existing older neighborhood. It was brought up in the past about the traffic, going from, it's appreciated that you're doing the 28-foot cartways, going onto those smaller roads out. I know there was a comment in here about traffic, but I haven't caught up with all the points on it yet. Just looking at the volume coming out on those tight residential streets that I think it's Roosevelt that comes out there.
At the end of the day, the volume is fairly modest from that there's 34 units. That's kind of listed in the Pidcock review letter. But DPW did ask us to document the roadways and the roadway conditions at the start of construction.
For construction impacts, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll do that as a condition of these letters.
Okay.
Is there any feedback from online? All right, I think we've asked all our questions.
So just to clarify, there are no waivers or deferrals. Okay.
Oh, that is a no for the people online.
So engineering approval was recommended by the township engineer. And township staff recommended conditional approval. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to grant conditional final approval based on Community Development Department recommendations 1 through 28. With, of course, any typos or something. I think there was something in there that we had to change. I don't remember what it was, but.
Sorry,
Remove 12.
removing condition 12.
And revising condition 19.
Mhm.
Are we also adding an additional condition regarding no parking?
I think that's probably prudent that we
To the
address to the
satisfaction
satisfaction township engineer and staff, the parking and sidewalk issue along Buckman Street.
Or whether no parking signage is necessary? I'm not sure. I'd like to identify what the issue is. That's why.
Yeah, parking, what was that? Parking, sidewalk,
parking and sidewalk.
and signage. Well, the signage, since that's a public street, we can only make a recommendation that the board then sign that for no parking.
So the other condition would be that through a combination of either sidewalk, street widening, and our no parking signs,
Mm-hmm.
the consultant will confer with township staff and engineer and legal.
To the satisfaction.
Resolve the issue to the satisfaction of township engineer and staff.
You're okay with that?
Yes.
That motion amended to include that.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Anyone have any questions regarding the motion? No questions? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'm abstaining from voting. Any opposed? None opposed? So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Will we see you again this year for another phase?
I'm not sure the answer to that.
Okay, so we get a little break here.
We
No
want to
offense.
get a little more built.
Understood. Thank you.
All right, we're on agenda item number 5, comprehensive plan update.
So comprehensive plan update, we have several plans in the works. Landscapes plan, which is our open space plan. We're working on the active transportation and safety plan. There's supposed to be a public event tomorrow night, but it might rain, so that will be postponed. There's supposed to be a movie not in the park, it's in the Oval. So there's supposed to be a movie in the Oval. We were going to have a public engagement session tied to the transportation plans. Tentatively, if it rains, we'll have a rain date for that. That project's moving along. Landscapes plan, we're wrapping up working with a consultant to get all the documentation done. One of the implementation items that we've been focusing on is the zoning overlay for the Jordan Valley. We have some information going to the board at the next meeting. We received quotes for a transportation analysis using what's called vehicle probe data. So it's Big Brother's watching and he's paying attention to where everybody goes, how fast they go. So tapping into that, so it will give us a lot more information for local roads that we can then use to reclassify. Like I mentioned for lighting, we can look at speeds and volumes and then add character on top, and we can get a really fine-tuned recommendations for policy to come out of that for roadways. Part of the landscape plan, there's going to be a bunch of recommendations and action plan that comes out of that, some of which will be resource protection ordinances, steep slopes, riparian buffers, things like that. So we'll start seeing those come through to the Planning Commission. Yeah.
A question, that the next Board of Commissioners meeting is on the 19th?
Yes.
That's Juneteenth. I just wasn't curious, has the township adopted that as a holiday or not?
No.
Other places have been.
I have no problem with an additional holiday. Well,
Bill says the guy.
Thank you.
You're going to be on a permanent vacation.
hey, I want to help my friends here.
So that's about it for the comp plan. There's a lot going on, a lot. So we're very busy with that. Some pretty cool stuff that hopefully we'll be bringing to you soon.
Great, thank you. Agenda item number 6, transportation infrastructure update.
Okay, next week there's a Tech Assist program. I think Brian can maybe talk a lot about that, but it's focusing on the Dorney Park area, Cedar Crest, and the hospital, and it's going to be with multiple municipalities, including South Whitehall. And PennDOT reallocated funding for demolition for the 309 interchange project. That's it.
Great, thanks. I'm curious, for Dorney Park, has there ever been any movement with
The
sidewalk?
sidewalk. It has gone through, we've seen versions of it. I'm pretty sure they sent a preliminary plan to PennDOT that was approved, and then they're moving forward with that process. So it's looking like it's going to go in from Haynes Mill to the driveway. So that's moving forward.
Great. First, agenda item number 7, courtesy of the floor.
You want to go first? Or should I give them the good news first? Okay, today was the deadline for resubmission and to finish up new submissions. You'll be getting July off. We have no submissions for July. So be noted, Board of Commissioners does not meet July 3rd, and Planning Commission will not meet in their July meeting.
Great.
So
I'll probably forget.
I'll take the floor here. So as I mentioned at the last meeting, Gregg is officially retiring. This is his last Planning Commission meeting. So I have a few conditions of retirement to read into the record here. 1, that the applicant shall choose a retirement location with normal sunlight hours of 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. 2, that the applicant shall designate a South Whitehall Township employee to reliably fill the candy dish by 12 p.m. on Tuesday of every week. Should the designee not fulfill their duties, applicant agrees to deliver candy by appropriate means. 3, that the applicant shall, prior to 12 p.m. on Tuesdays, call or log into a virtual meeting to be broadcast to all of the Community Development Department to hear. Said call to meeting shall be called to order by shaking of a candy-filled recycled Christmas popcorn container. 4, that the applicant continue to take lunches no earlier than 2 p.m. and said lunches contain a daily servings of meat-flavored vegetables. 5, that the applicant agrees to, at a minimum of once per month, appear on the Michigan Tech Husky web camera and provide community development staff sufficient notice. 6, that the applicant shall designate additional staff member the duty and responsibility to replenish the peanut butter filled pretzels on Tuesdays. 7, should the applicant desire, all conditions of approval continue to be read into the record, that the applicant agrees to attend said meeting either in person or virtual to read said conditions into the record.
Can I add another one? That they have to wear a tie? They have to wear a tie.
So you're going to submit to me the acceptance of conditions form?
Yeah, but we might have some more conditions. I had a bit of a speech for Gregg here. I will make it a little briefer. So Gregg's been here for 25 years. His dedication to the township is exemplary. His Board of Commissioner meeting attendance or Board and Commission meeting attendance records will likely never be beat. His career stats include 308 Planning Commission meetings, 227 Landscape and Shade Tree Committee meetings, 163 Parks and Rec Board meetings, 136 Board of Commissioner meetings, 36 Zoning Hearing Board meetings, 31 Public Safety Commissions, 30 Building Code Appeals meetings, 32 Comprehensive Plan meetings, over 2 comprehensive plans, for a total of 963 Board and Commission meetings for South Whitehall Township. And while we're speaking of attendance, Gregg, exactly how many sick days have you taken in your 25 years?
To date, exactly 0. But I have 11 days left.
So one of the other things that Gregg's lasting legacy for the township is his filing system. He is ingrained into the community development department his motto: consistency is the hallmark of a good filing system. I've learned. So I'd like to go over some more stats, career stats for Gregg. Of the applications that he's filed, it's include 25 street vacations, line and grade permits, zoning officer preliminary opinions, 93 waivers from land development, 12 conditional uses, 45 zoning ordinance or map updates, 56 professional staff consultations, 29 building code appeals, 54 minor subdivision or land development, 222 major subdivision or land development, 10 zoning appeals. So that equals roughly 550 subdivision folders on our servers. The overall total count, or those files account for 98,214,987,264 bytes worth of data. His legacy will also include his forms and fee schedules. As the saying goes, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery that mediocrity can pay to greatness. Gregg's format for fee schedules will live on both at South Whitehall Township and municipalities throughout the Lehigh Valley, including some very close neighbors. Gregg's greatness is evident in his devotion to service. Some of you may not know, but Gregg served in the U.S. Army driving tanks. After blowing things up with tanks, Gregg devoted himself to serving his local community of Hamburg on the Hamburger Festival Committee and with Blue Mountain Wildlife. I would argue that working for municipal government is a form of service. Service to that municipality. In this regard, South Whitehall Township has certainly benefited from Gregg's devotion to service. Gregg, thank you for your service to this country, your local community, and thank you for your 25 years of service to the community of South Whitehall Township. Please keep the flip phone close and don't block my number. Congratulations, Gregg. And after adjournment, we have a little surprise for Greg, so stick around. And it'll be picture time.
I so enjoy these little surprises.
But seriously, Greg, for having personally been on this board for 14 years, you have been a rock that's kept planning together. I can't thank you enough. And Harbison before, George Kinney and Dave Manhart, you have always been this steady guide and making sure we vote correctly and legally. So I want to thank you personally for all our little talks in my driveway when you used to run the packets around. So, yeah. So, thank you.
Thank you. No one else has anything to say. I have 9 minutes. As I complete my 309th and final Planning Commission meeting, I just want to say thank you to you all. There are a number of people I do want to recognize. Some have been recognized before, some have flown under the radar, but I want to make sure tonight they get recognized. I want to first thank all the Planning Commission solicitors that I've served with: Paul North, Blake Marles, Jamie Kratz, Jim Snyder, Chris McLean, Steph Cobol, and Jennifer Aldifer. Thank you. You've all kept me within the legal bounds, which I think is very important for a township to be. So thank you all. I want to then thank the township engineers that I've served with over these 25 years. Paul North, Ron Golick, J. Ralph Russick, Commander, U.S. Navy, Brian Harmon, Tony Talarita, and the latest and greatest Aaron Bett. Thank you all. You've all been wonderful, invaluable assistants over 25 years. It's been a pleasure working with all of you, and I appreciate your wisdom and your knowledge. Thank you. Very important, all the members of this community who have stepped up and given their time for free to do what is best for their community. All the Planning Commission members I've served with: Alan Tope, Wilbur Blue, Buddy Lesavoy, Steve Sayer, Don Worley, John Gauger, Joni Remmel, Dave Dunbar, Howard Ellsworth, Tom Kuklis, Tori Morgan, Bob Bilecki, Dan D'Imperio, Bill McNair, Brian Height, Vinnie Quinn, Brian Wieland, Diane Kelly, Dave Wilson, Mark Luth, Matt Mulqueen, Andrew Flagg, Tim Dugan, Trevor Dombach, and Todd Farringer. Thank you all, not just for me, but you guys have done a great job for your community. And I can see that every day that I come to this township and I work and I talk to the residents. You've been fantastic. Thank you. Last but not least, the Community Development Department, the people I've worked with on a day-to-day basis over these last 25 years. I want to especially thank my bosses. Let's start with Jeff Higgins, the man who hired me. Yes. Gerald J. Harbison, who I want to get to later. George Kinney, even George Kinney. And of course, Dave Manhart. I want to thank Chris, long range planner. I want to thank the people that I work with closest on a daily basis: Keith Sainer and Laura Harrier, the zoning officers. We're a team in that office. We work together constantly. And without good people working, it diminishes us all. And those two were very good. Best people I've ever worked with. And finally, last but not least, a special place in my heart for Jerry Harbison. The guy was a rock here. If I'm standing tall, it's because I stand on the shoulder of a giant. That man served here more than 33 years, has forgotten more about this township than I'll ever know. And I appreciate all of his wisdom, his mentorship, everything he's ever given to me. So I just want to give a call out to him as well. So thank you all. If I've forgotten anything, I hope I haven't, but
We have another meeting for you, so you have an opportunity then.
well, yeah. But this, I got to admit, this is my board. This is the board I've been on since July of 1999, doing minutes almost every meeting since then. So yeah, this is my home. So thank you all.
Congratulations.
Much appreciated. So 5 minutes early.
All right, so anyone want to make a motion?
I think Greg should make the
Time to
motion.
retire? I don't think so. But can we stop that?
Listen, I'll let him.
But
I will
accept the
make a
motion?
motion to adjourn on behalf of Mr. Greg Adams.
I'll second.
Thank you, sir.
Those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.